Hi there, my name's Kim Stoddarт and I write for Grow Your Own magazine, and over the years I've done a lot around my so-called badly behaved stance to gardening. The badly behaved doesn't mean that I'm badly behaved. Really, it's kind of a play on words. I'm very polite to people. I respect nature, wildlife, and everything around me, and do use a bit of sarcasm sometimes, but I think that's perfectly acceptable. You can get away with it. So when it comes to gardening, it's really about a free-spirited approach to gardening. Effectively, it's I suppose you could say looking at the rules a lot of the time around gardening. Grow Your Own, there's a lot of very strict rules and regulations which actually tie into more recent Victorian principles of gardening. So if you look back in the distant past to before then, there was more of a free-spirited approach, because workers had gardens, they had allotments, they had to grow food for the table because it was essential for them in order to eat. So they didn't have time, they were working, they didn't have time to double dig and to have, follow all these exacting instructions. Instead, there was a much more, say, free-spirited way of actually working with nature. So they would use weeds between planting, they would have mixed planting, as I have here, and they used to save their own seed, and it was just a much lower maintenance way of doing things. So that's very much where I'm coming from. There's a badly behaved car going by. So my top tips, my 3 top tips for being a badly behaved gardener, which is essentially about having a low maintenance, much more fun space in which to be, where there's less work, and being more in tune with nature, working with nature to the benefit of the produce and the well-being of you, the gardener, that is spending time within that space. So tip number 1 is to think about employing a mixed planting system. So rather than following very, very exacting crop rotation systems, which I did for years, and it used to make my head whirl that people suggested different things and I had to have all these exacting plans. But what I learned through experimenting is if you just allow sufficient distance between crops of the same type, and if you then use filler plants which are light on the soil, like lettuce and herbs, you don't have to think about this at all. You won't be depleting the soil of certain types of nutrients, and you won't get pest buildup. And the bonus of that as well is that it's much harder for pests to actually move in and find what they're looking for. It's almost as if you have a big block of carrots, you might as well put a sign up saying "carrot fly, come this way." But if you imagine lots of plants mixed in together, it's much harder for whatever the dastardly pest is looking for to actually find what it's looking for. And it's really good for wildlife and biodiversity, and it's hugely productive and so incredibly easy to do. I get a lot of people on my courses saying, well, I like planting in straight lines, I really enjoy it. Great, I'd say just crack on, keep planting in the way that you enjoy, but maybe just employ straight lines of different produce. You can start in a little space at first, and you could always move out as you see fit. But the step 2, or the second, I think, badly behaved tactic, is just to make the gardening your own. So rather than feeling that you have to follow these very exacting instructions, it's really, really important to create a space that works really well for you, that makes you smile, that makes you feel good. Makes you feel good to be outside, good to be alive in that space. In my case, it's working with wildlife. It's having lots of bright colours, lots of edible flowers like calendula. It's vibrant. It's it's a very low maintenance space in which to be, and it's somewhere that I find hugely enjoyable. Step 3, or point 3, for being a badly behaved gardener, is to work with the natural world, to work with wildlife. So rather than meticulously weeding every single weed that dares to appear on your veg patch. Don't feel that you have to do that. It can provide protection for the soil. Right now, we're amidst a massive drought. I mean, where I live in West Wales, it's rained once in the last 9 weeks. My private water supply has actually run almost completely dry. So what I'm doing is using weeds as ground cover, non-invasive weeds, of course, but using weeds as ground cover to protect the soil. So it protects the soil from drying out. It also attracts pollinating insects, which of course you need to obviously pollinate your plants, lots of plants. So those are my tips. There are many more besides, which I write about regularly in the magazine. But the key thing with gardening is just to feel that you don't have to do it the way that we're told to do it. Just keep pushing the boundaries, keep experimenting. And that way you become more confident and empowered as a gardener, which makes the whole process from start to finish much more enjoyable indeed.